Would you like to reduce your net fleet fuel spend by 10 to 23%? Could you use that money in other areas in your company while reducing your carbon footprint at the same time? Click the link below and learn more. Hey everybody, welcome to Freight Executive Insights, FEI. I'm Mike Vincent. I'm not the freight executive with the insights, but I got another one on the hook, and his name's Cale Pearson, and he is president and shareholder at B2B Transportation Services.
Yes, sir.
I got that right, didn't I?
You did. Perfect. You nailed it.
Fantastic. So, hey, welcome to the show, Cale. Thanks for coming on, my friend.
Yeah, appreciate it, and happy to be here, and love talking shop about freight and logistics. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. Do you have a candy hangover from last night from Halloween or?
No, not too bad. It was weird. We didn't have, normally we have a ton of trick-or-treaters, and we didn't. And I was asking some of the kids, they're doing the trunk or treat or whatever they call it these days.
Yeah.
So it was less than half. We have a ton of candy left over. We actually left our bowl on the porch last night when we went to bed.
Oh, wow. We've had down years like that. This was not a down year. This was a big year. This was one of the big years. But I agree with you. It goes up and down. It's a lot like, freight cycles, which is what we're here to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So you're president of B2B Transportation. And for those who maybe have not used your services or don't know, what's B2B Transportation? I know what B2B is, but what is the company, right? What do you guys do?
Yep. So B2B is freight brokerage. We don't have any assets. We have about 35 agents and then about 25 employees based in Medford, Oregon. So our agents are all over the U.S., all truckload, really. I mean, there's a little bit of LTL, but it's primarily truckload, whether it's van, reefer. Majority of it is flatbed or heavy haul, over-dimensional type stuff.
I got you. All right. That's the majority of it is over-dimensional, heavy haul?
Yeah, or just flatbed in general. So about 60% fits into that flatbed heavy haul market.
I got you. That's a very specialized niche, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't pick up and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to do flatbed. And then when you get into heavy haul and oversized, that's really a specialized niche, right?
Yeah, it really is. My experience is flatbed, so just general commodity flatbed I'm great on. But we have a lot of agents that they've been 25, 30 years doing this big stuff, and I just pick up the phone and call them if I have a question because they're the expert.
Yeah, and you need that. It's not like something you jump in. Like you almost need to be an apprentice for a number of years, right?
Really
I mean, there's a lot of details that a novice could really screw up a customer, right?
Quickly.
Very, very quickly. All the regulations and different, and even routing, right? Because we were in a past life. I interviewed, I think he's a port director there, the Port of Vancouver, right, right there between Washington and Oregon, not Vancouver, Canada. But that is where the majority of the wind turbine blades come into, and move through because of the routing that is there. Right, you can't you just can't import them through any port and expect it to happen, right?
Yep.
And that happens with a lot of the goods or flatbed oversized, right? Is that routing has to be just perfect, right?
Yeah, because unfortunately in my career I've seen guys hit bridges, and that's never a good thing, especially the last dozen years or whatever it's been, where that's been a little bit more noteworthy, where some of those bridges have actually failed. Luckily, we've never seen anything like that, but it's never good to hit a bridge.
No, it isn't. But there's that one bridge out there on the East Coast and near Boston, I think, that gets hit like daily. It's just,
I know. All the freight memes.
you just sit out there and just watch it crunch. Yep. It's ridiculous. So how did you get into trucking? Is this is this what you always wanted to do, or how did you get into flatbed?
I right out of college, I went to work for a roofing manufacturer doing the shipping and traffic. And that started my career. And even before that, during college, I actually worked in a pepper shed one summer doing forklifts, unloading trucks off the field. So I played golf in college, and my golf coach that was his summer job. And so the golfers ran the lifts, and that was really my exposure to it. And they interviewed on campus, and I was like, hey, I got a little bit of experience, and got the job. And then was there for about 15 months, and but that was in California. Didn't want to live there much longer, and found a flatbed company that was one of my carriers, and just started talking to them.
Wow, that's interesting. And so golf was like your backup career in case this failed.
No, I mean I wanted it to be, but I was the it was a JUCO, and I was the fourth or fifth guy on the team, so I was happy to play.
Yeah, just happy to be out there.
Yep.
Yeah. But I bet you're highly sought after in the four ball scrambles and stuff in the transportation club meetings.
Yeah, it's funny because we just got back from the Broker Carrier Summit, and another employee of ours and I actually won the 2-man shamble, which I really haven't been playing that great until the last 2 rounds. Kind of figured it out, and we ended up winning that tournament. So that was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. I heard that was a great summit, huh? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I really enjoy it because it does bring a lot of brokers, a lot of carriers together. Obviously a lot of tech vendors too, but it's a little bit different from the standpoint of, it's more about getting those brokers and carriers together.
Yeah, well, building the relations, right? Because
Yeah.
there's times when they're very good and there's times when they're very, very tense, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, and we've been through the tense times both on the high end of rates and low end of rates. It seems like faster than normal it has split,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the end of 2019 going into 2020, carriers were screaming for or floors on rates, right? And
Hmm.
then literally 3 months later, they're making $40 a mile. I mean,
Yeah.
not that
Yeah.
crazy,
But
but
crazy.
yeah, but crazy. And now
Hmm.
it's flipped back the other way. And one thing, when you're talking about like dry van truckload or even LTL brokers, right? There doesn't seem to be um, a margin swing,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I don't think a lot of carriers understand is that when you're the intermediary, those margin swings they're not going. They're not going to you.
No, they're not at all. I mean, even in an up market, a lot of times your margins are thinner,
Yeah,
because you're having to buy the truck.
well, exactly. and then when it's down, your margin might be bigger, but it's 15% of a buck is a lot less than 15% of $10.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, it's a very
Right?
thin margin business. A lot of people don't understand that. They just see like I tell people all the time, there is a ton of money that runs through the company. You just don't get to keep it.
Yeah, yeah. That's right. That's right. Your lawn. Well, not we're not going to say laundering.
Right.
Well, we did,
You're-
but we'll take that back. We didn't mean it.
yeah.
But yeah, that's what they don't understand because it's always the broker did this and the brokers are doing that and blah blah blah, and everybody jumps on TQL. They make these great margins and all, and that's it. Well, all right, if they're making great margins, well then you're the customer. You're at fault. It's because you're the one giving them the money. But the
Yeah.
majority, when rates are $10 a mile or $4 a mile, I mean, let's get more realistic of how high they were, but $4 or $5 a mile at times, it wasn't because the broker just said, "Hey, we can charge this."
Right.
That wasn't the case, right?
Yeah.
And when you can only pay, $1.90 a mile, it's not because hey, you're keeping the other $5.
Right.
It's because that's all you're going to get.
Hmm.
It's very interesting. Did flatbed and overhaul change cycle as the rest of the commodities do? Because you can see both, right? Because you do
Yeah.
general dry van, right?
Yeah.
Did it cycle as much and does it normally?
I would say it didn't, and no, it doesn't, because you're not, if you're looking at dry van world, you're dealing with, major carriers, right?
Yeah,
Schneider, Knight Swift, those size carriers. Whereas in flatbed, you have some big companies, but not 30,000 power units. So you just don't see that. And a lot of what we're doing is more niche anyway. So you're not going to have a customer that's shipping 200 loads a day. They might have 10 or 15, or they have a big project, but it's project based. And so that's going to fit, a broker a little bit better, versus just, a lane that you can always commit on, or, it's just going to be consistent.
yeah. See, I never did flatbed, and it always seemed like it would be something that would interest me tremendously because it feels like the majority of or a large percent of the shipments have much more to them than just a pickup and a delivery here, right?
Yeah.
Scheduling which loads deliver when and staging and have them in the right place. And not to mention, the routing for the oversized and that type of stuff.
Yeah.
But all that project, like you said, right? And that's very difficult because if you're not careful, you wind up with a whole bunch of assets sitting in one little location and nothing coming back out of it, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yep.
they're building a massive chip factory in Ohio. And, do you really want 400 flatbeds sitting in the middle of Amish country at the end of that?
No, not at all. Not at all.
It can get crazy. Is my mic still coming through clear?
Yep, it's good.
Okay, good. I'm gonna change my speakers here real quick because my speakers seem a little messed up. Anyways, yeah, it's so. Let's see here. So they don't do that, or they're not as season. Well, is there seasonality to it?
Yeah, there's definitely seasonality just because of winter. So we're getting into the slower season. November, December, January, February are typically the four slowest months, just because weather is a factor, obviously, and then daylight's a factor. If you're doing any kind of construction or building, you just don't have as many daylight hours.
Yeah, gotcha. And so I guess the economics is something else that really watches it. I mean, as you're planning out through your year, you're paying attention to the economists and the predictions in the economy and building market and so on, manufacturing as well, right?
Yeah, and we follow all that stuff, but a lot of it is trying to diversify your customer base enough too, so that you're not all in one market, right?
Right,
And
right.
they're all up and then they're all down. It's like you want to have some maybe shippers that maybe you have a building materials and then you have a steel company, or then you have some big power generator company, something like that. So just diversifying that customer base as well is critical.
So I guess the diversification in that market it comes down to, I mean, most of it is, I mean, it's heavy machinery and construction, right? But
Yeah,
you're looking at commercial construction versus residential construction is a big thing, right? Or
yeah,
refurb projects versus new construction projects is
yeah,
a big thing.
yeah. And
Has, go
the
ahead.
price of steel makes a big difference too. How because it's a commodity at the end of the day.
Yeah,
So if that market's tight, we're not going to see as many shipments. Same thing with lumber. A lot of those are commodity, and housing starts are a big one, of course, as well. So it's just all these different factors that really impact it. So you're going to be tied to the residential market. You're going to be tied to the commercial market. You're going to be tied to the industrial market. So as long as you can diversify enough within those three, you're not going to see those big swings as much.
gotcha. Now there's different events, whether they be geopolitical or natural disaster events, those type of things. Are there those that you watch closely to see what's going to happen? I mean, are you impacted by natural disasters and that type of stuff
Yeah,
as
definitely.
well as dry vans are?
In my when I was an asset based carrier, we were a general commodity. So we did a lot of roofing, and when
Okay.
you saw hailstorms, you knew that there was going to be a lot of roofs replaced.
Yeah.
And so you just knew if there was a big hailstorm that went. I remember one that went through Denver, Colorado. It's probably been 15 years ago now. I mean, it destroyed a ton of roofs. And then you had that whole, not that we're on that side of it, but with the contractors and the price gouging and the
Yeah.
local people there. So we watch that. Definitely watch hurricanes. They're unfortunate events, but a lot of times after you have, that you're bringing in mobile generators or mobile power, those sorts of things. A lot of power only type equipment as well.
Yeah. Is there staging or is it mostly rebuild?
There's quite a bit of staging too with
Yeah.
power.
Oh, for the power end of it too, for
Yeah.
the generators, that type of stuff, right? Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is the near shoring having effect on you changing routes, et cetera, from ports to like cross-border Mexico, et cetera, or East Coast or anything like that, as kind of the supply chains international have at least attempted to make, other than China shoring, I guess?
Yeah. We don't have a lot of that, but I definitely see where it'll switch ports, like maybe it'd be the Northeast, and then now you're seeing more up through Texas, through Houston in that market. I haven't really seen a lot up in the Pacific Northwest. Those ports are kind of down. I know that some stuff was coming through Vancouver, BC, a little bit out of Seattle, and of course, LA, Long Beach is huge.
Yeah. I mean, and why would it change I mean, just the threat of of strikes, that type of thing.
Could be that. Could be container rates, could be availability.
Gotcha.
Definitely strikes. They start to hear about a strike, they're going to divert because they don't want their inbound materials to dry up.
Right, right, right. Because I mean, everybody thinks that. I mean, not everybody, but there's a number that are not even thinking about the fact that the strike on the East Coast was not solved. It was just diverted until January 15th.
Yeah, it's punted, right?
Right. They just punted it down the field. It's
Hmm.
still coming, and you still have a relatively, angry, less than rational person on one side. If you,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
if you don't have to agree, but I think you do. which is unfortunate. So what are you looking at for the future? Are you seeing in flatbed, because we're in an economy right now that is, it's there, and on the van side of it, there's those that are still looking for this recovery.
Yeah.
Uh, and I don't know what they're looking for, because we're not going to recover to anything that happened in the last 4 years, because none of that was natural.
No, it wasn't.
And we're still higher than 2019. So I'm not sure what they're looking for. Uh, how do you guys see things playing out from your perspective in the flatbed side?
Looking at COVID and everything that happened with that, definitely learned a lot because yeah, it was not natural, like you said. Rates were really inflated, and trying to learn from that because everything was so easy during that time as far as booking freight. I always make the example of like with new people that when they came in, I said, listen, this is not normal. And I was hitting that all the time because if they came in, they're like, this is the easiest job ever. I'm just printing money. And I'm like, just wait. Because the example I use is like customer could call you, hey, I need a truck. And you're like, okay, I'll get it next Monday for 6,000.
Yeah,
Well, Monday rolls around and you can't get a truck for 6,000. So you call the customer and say, hey, I can get it by Friday, but I need 6,800.
yeah,
And they'd be like, okay, or let me check on some other things. And they come back to you because they just needed a truck.
yeah.
Um, and that was so irrational that it was just crazy. So from that time, what did I learn as a company and running the company is, just not getting over our skis because you see a lot of people that have gone bankrupt during this
Oh
time. We've
yeah,
been in business 20 plus years. Luckily we're debt free. We don't have assets, so we don't have that overhead. Our overhead is pretty much payroll and a lease, and whatever contracts we have for tech. It's pretty minimal. So keeping lean is critical so that you can manage. And then I think one of the things biggest for us right now is just pushing how do we get our name out there. So we've really invested, pushing towards YouTube, towards doing some LinkedIn stuff and getting our name out there because I look at it as, I'm 46 and a lot of the people are my age or older in this business that have a lot of great experience. Well, we're all going to age out at some point.
sure.
And if we want to stay relevant and continue to grow, we need to meet, the younger generation where they are, and that's on their phones, on social media, on YouTube. So one of the things we're doing right now is we call it the Baby Broker to Boss Broker series, and we're taking brand new people. I've got one guy, I think he's 24, maybe even 23, right out of college, and another guy, new career, and we're just documenting their journey, from a baby broker to a boss broker. They've been with us 5 weeks now, and it's just you forget how much there is to know in this business, and then how much you have to teach somebody that's brand new to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And taking that time to teach them and teach them right is incredibly important.
Yeah.
And not something that just anybody can do, right? Because a lot of times it's just, I'll just do it myself.
Right. Yeah. There's a
Right.
lot of that.
Oh yeah. When crunch time comes, especially in a brokerage house, well, it's really true in any side of the spectrum in logistics, but it's where crunch time, you don't have time,
Hmm.
and you certainly don't want to let them make a mistake. Right. But you kind of have to let those birds do that and kind of sit there and watch. And then there's no, do it this way, even though
Yeah.
it's not better. It's just your way. Right.
Right. Exactly.
That's a difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
That's a difficult thing to do. Cale, I really appreciate you coming on. See, 20 minutes flies by.
I know it
Boom.
does.
Super quick. We'll have to do a longer one and discuss your whole history getting into it, et cetera. But B2B Transportation Services, you're doing refrigerated, you're doing general freight, you're doing flatbed, you're doing heavy haul, oversized, all truckload quantities, right? You're not doing LTL?
We have, I mean, minuscule amount of LTL, but I always tell customers that's not what we're good at. So we're not going to be super competitive on a large
Yeah,
scale on
gotcha.
that.
Where are people going to give you all their business, man?
Obviously, our website, B2B Transerve. You can find me on LinkedIn, Cale Pearson, or our company page, B2B as well. And then really hitting us up on YouTube, really growing that presence. B2B Transportation as well on there.
Yeah, excellent. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it
You got it.
as
Hey,
well.
thanks everybody for tuning into FEI. I'm Mike Vincent, and peace and love. We'll catch you next time.